Jesus' name. We would just like to thank you for being here this morning on behalf of our illustrious pastor, Reverend Dr. Vincent E. Stokes Sr., and the Social Justice Ministry, Minister J. Thomas, Sister Shalimar Thomas, and the Women's Ministry. We would like to welcome you here today, and we just hope that you would have a good time, hope that you would be your true self to the candidates, because that is our expectation here at the Holy Cross Baptist Church. We don't want you to tell us what you think we want to hear. We want you to tell us the truth. Shall we pray? Most gracious and eternal Father, once again, a few of your humble servants have gathered in your name. Lord, we thank you for another opportunity. Help us to do things decently and in order. We ask that everything that we do this morning will be pleasing in your sight. Lord, ultimately we know that you are going to get the glory out of everything that we do. Lord, we ask that you would bless these candidates, those seeking an election. Lord, we ask that you would have your way in the place with them this morning. We ask that you would just guide them, direct them. Lord, whoever is successful at the end of this journey, we ask that you would just be alongside them to continue to do what you would have them to do for this great city of Philadelphia. Lord, the city is hurting right now. We have a lot of issues that we need reconciliation on, and we have a lot of things that we would like to see in this great city. Lord, so we ask that these candidates, whoever comes out on top, would be able to see this city through to a better and greater place to be, a better place to stay, a better place to worship, a better place to live. Lord, we just thank you right now for all that you do, all that you're doing, and all that you are yet to do. Lord, we thank you, we praise you, we give you all the glory and the honor. In Jesus' precious name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Good morning, everyone. I am going to be bringing you a Bible verse this morning, and we will be coming from Matthew chapter 25, verses 35 through 40. And it says, "For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you?" And the king will answer them, "Truly, I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these, who are members of my family, you did it to me." What social injustices are happening in our community, and helping them come up with ways to solve those injustices from a biblical perspective. The other thing we do is to make sure that we educate our community on the importance of being civic-minded, because we know that when people are civically engaged, that is when change to our community happens. So again, we want to thank you all for coming out, and we should have a great discussion today.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you, and welcome to our candidates discussion and meet and greet. I'm Shalimar Thomas, and I'm happy to get the program started. However, before I introduce the moderator and our guests, I want to share a few things. We're trying something new with this forum. Usually you only see mayoral forums and discussions, but here's what we know. City council members play a vital role at getting legislation passed and getting necessary resources into our communities. City council and the mayor will need to work in partnership to get the job done, which is why we have them here on the same stage together. Here are some numbers for you to consider. This is at the time that I did these notes, so these numbers may have changed a little bit. There are currently 35 at-large city council candidates. Did that change? It changed, okay. Currently running for office. 27? Here's the thing, our job is to vote for 7, right? There are city council at-large is not the same as your district city council member. There are a total of 17 city council members, and one of their jobs is to pass legislation. Of the 17 council members, 7 are elected at-large by voters throughout Philadelphia. These at-large candidates represent the whole city. And there are 10 candidates that represent certain areas of the city. For example, Curtis Jones is currently the district council member for Holy Cross Baptist Church. Laws are passed by city council. Laws are passed during city council session and then are signed into law by the mayor, who also has the power to veto them. However, city council can override that veto with a 2/3 vote. So you see how the mayor and city council have to work together. At the time of writing these notes, it was 12 mayoral candidates. I think it's only 11 now, right? All right, running for office. Our job is to vote for 1. According to Philadelphia's Home Rule Charter, executive and administrative power of the city, as it now exists, shall be exclusively vested in and exercised by a mayor and other officers, departments, boards, and commissions. The mayor appoints various leadership positions in the city, as well as appoints individuals to serve on various boards and commissions. The mayor also presides over a $5.8 billion budget and more than 25,000 city employees. All right, so we have that information, and we know the job of our elected officials. Let's get the conversation started. I'd like to welcome our moderator to today's event, Jen Devor, Executive Director of Better Civics, to the podium, and I'd like to invite all our mayor and city council candidates to the stage for the podium.
Can everyone hear me okay? Does that sound good? Great, thank you. Thank you so much for having me here today. As Shalomar mentioned, my name is Jen Devor, and I'm president of Better Civics. And everyone's mics are on too, just remember, hot mics. My name is Jen Devor, and I'm the president and co-founder of Better Civics. We're a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to revolutionizing civic engagement and voter turnout. How do we do this? Through educating residents like yourselves on how government should and could work for you and for us as a community. And thank you so much to Shalomar Thomas, our board member, for inviting us to be part of this amazing day today. In Philadelphia, we have close to a 90% voter registration rate. But yet in our last mayoral election, we had roughly 23% of those voters turn out. That means that 75% of people that were eligible to vote did not vote. And we want to figure out why, right? And a big part of that is not understanding the opportunities that our candidates present to us. We don't believe in voter apathy at Better Civics because we don't believe that you can care about something you don't understand. And so our goal and our work every day, and especially today, is to make sure that our community understands how government can and should work for them. We want you to be confident in your vote through access to information, and today is such an awesome opportunity to understand the issues and decide who you will be supporting, and most importantly, why. So let's get into it. All right, thank you all so much for being here. I'm also very excited that we have a women's forum today. I think that's really fantastic. We're going to get started. We're going to allow each candidate no more than 10 seconds for this first part. Just for this first part, right? You're going to share your name. You gotta listen, right? You gotta share your name, the office you're running for, and one word to describe your political experience to date. From this end down, and please be a good role model for rules and regulations. We're gonna have you guys self-moderate a little bit. If I was up, I asked to be up there with you guys so I can, pull you down. But I think we're gonna be great. Let's start with
Good morning, my name is Kendra Brooks and I'm running for City Council at large. I'm having a hard time with one word. I would say, for me, my personal word would be commitment.
Good morning, I love this. Maria Jimenez Sanchez, I serve in City Council. I am running for mayor, and my word would be ready.
Good morning, my name is Amanda McElmurray. I'm running for City Council at large for the Democratic primary. My word is community.
My name is Rebecca Reinhardt. I'm running for mayor of Philadelphia, and my word is experienced.
Good morning. My name is Nina Ahmed. I'm running for City Council at large in the Democratic primary, a former deputy mayor, and my word is love.
Sherelle Parker, candidate for mayor, prepared.
Erin Sandmore, City Council at large, audacious.
Let's give a round of applause just for that. So now we're going to get into the issues. The congregation here today and its community have selected these questions, focusing on these two offices and how they'll interact and ideally work together. So candidates will get 1 minute to answer each question. A representative will be available to let candidates and myself know when to wrap up. So we'll just make sure to have some eye contact here. I think Jay's in the audience. That's going to be, you're doing time. Shalomar's doing time. Perfect.
We have to look at you. You'll see me. Okay, all right.
All right, this first question is for all the mayoral candidates, and maybe just to start, we'll start with you, Ms. Parker. One of the responsibilities of the mayor is to appoint leadership positions for the city. What does diversity look like in your administration?
Diversity represents not just demographic diversity as it relates to race, but it's race, class, and socioeconomic experience and experience in government. Socioeconomic status is important because not everyone starts the race of life at the same place and space. So we want to make sure that diversified opinions and thoughts and, quite frankly, cultural competency to ensure that that is something that is factored in to deciding who will lead and experience. Because not everyone has been given the opportunity to lead and advance to the managerial levels in government.
Thank you.
Diversity is incredibly important to me. As city controller, I had a diverse staff and leadership team. What that means is that it should look like the city of Philadelphia. As controller, 50% of my staff were African American and other minority, and leadership as well. And as city controller, when we identified that we had 50% of our new auditors African American, but as they went up the ranks, there was a decline in African American leadership, we changed the CPA requirement in terms of funding it up front to make it easier for everyone to be able to compete for those jobs. That's the way that I'll lead as mayor. I want diverse backgrounds, race, and ethnicity in the room with every decision that I make for our city. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a very important issue because folks talk about equity and how we move forward in a more equitable way in the city. The next mayor is going to appoint 2 out of 5 civil service positions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lead by requiring that every single city department have an equity plan. Why is that important? We have the lowest paid workers, African American and people of color working in the city of Philadelphia. Departments are discriminated against. 96% of the sanitation department is African American and the majority of the staff qualify for food coupons. I would address this. As it relates to the leadership team, we're a World Heritage City. So it has to be diverse. It has to have language opportunities so that we can live up to that potential. But more important, it has to have people with lived experience. Just because you have a degree does not mean that you understand how that department impacts people's lives. So I will ensure that we have people from diverse backgrounds, diverse lived experience, who know how policy impacts people's lives. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. All right, we're gonna switch back over now to City Council. Nina, we'll start with you on this question and then we'll go down the line. So how diverse are you expecting your team to be? And why is this important to your work and how will it help your goals?
So, as was mentioned by the mayoral candidates, all those reasons are valid. But I am an immigrant to this city, and I have realized the dream to be able to sit on this dais with all of you. I pinch myself. So, what does that pathway look like? How do we make that pathway real? I want people with lived experience on my team to know how to reach out and show people, especially our young people. I said I want to lead with love. We need to lead with love into communities to tell our young people, look at all of us, that can be you tomorrow. And that's why my team will look like what Philadelphia looks like and have the ability to make outreach to our communities to see that there's a pathway for everyone.
Great, thank you. Amanda, we'll go to you next.
Thank you. So it's incredibly important as well for me that my team reflects the city of Philadelphia. Right now on my campaign, we have our website and our literature translated into both, into obviously English, but also Spanish, Vietnamese, and Chinese, because those are the other three languages that are most spoken in the city of Philadelphia. And, I think we need diversity of experience, especially for at-large candidates, when it comes to lived experience, when it comes to neighborhood, when it comes to race, when it comes to gender, when it comes to income. And that's what I'm going to prioritize when putting together my staff. One of my biggest skills throughout my career has been trying to recognize where there are gaps in my experience and bringing together the right team of people to get things done.
Thank you. Kendra and Aaron.
Okay, so for me, I entered council as an impacted person. So when I think about what do I want my office to reflect, my office currently reflects Philadelphia. I have a very diverse office in age, race, class, socioeconomic status, and educational background. And I am committed to that because a person's lived experience describe how they help me lead. And that's why I thought it was important for me to have varied folks in my office, including LGBTQ and non-gender conforming. So to me, that has been my commitment when I was running for office. And if you could come into my office any day and someone in my office can relate to your issues, and then I will continue to keep that commitment as an elected official.
Thank you.
When I think about this question, I think about what the actual job is, and having served in city council as a chief of staff, and I know the former council members here can talk about it. The job is responding to people's needs each and every single day. If you cannot relate to the needs of the people who are calling, it is very difficult to help. And so my office will represent the community we serve. I make that promise and commitment. But I said the word audacious because I want folks in my office to dream big for everybody. And that means your success is our success. And so each and every day, I want them working hard on your behalf. So when it comes to having diversity, absolutely. Diverse lived experience, absolutely. But they have to be there to work hard and help you each and every day. That's what my office will be about.
Great, thank you. All right, we're going to move back on to the mayor's questions, and we're going to start with Rebecca. What would be your top 3 priorities when creating the budget? How will you work with City Council to get your budget passed? Easy questions, right?
My top 3 priorities in terms of fixing things in the city are public safety. We have to make the city safe. Fixing the education system. We have to make every school a good school. My daughter's in 7th grade in the public school system, and every school should be a good school. And also fixing city services so that the trash is picked up and our streets are clean. We need to do that. In terms of budget priorities, I know the city's budget inside and out from being the budget director for 5 years. There is a lot of wasted money that we need to fix within the budget. For example, my office as controller estimated that we could save an easy $40 million a year just by managing overtime the way it used to be managed. That's the way the way I will lead as mayor of our city. That's my time. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Maria and then Cheryl.
Thank you. I encourage folks to go to people's website, mine is mariaforphilly.com, because during this campaign, people have evolved, candidates have evolved. So I want to make sure folks can go back to how we started. I'm the only candidate running on a zero-based budget, which means I'm going to make every department ask itself, who do you serve? What is your role? What is your function? I'm going to ask every single department, what's your anti-poverty strategy? What's your public safety strategy? What's your inclusion and economic development plan? Why? Because the departments that make us safe are the operational ones. The streets department, L&I, those are the departments that need to be resourced and properly staffed so that all of us, I'm the only one calling for citywide camera program. In fixing, we know where the next crime is going to happen, and we need to lead with that intention. And how I would deal with schools, again, read the education plan inquiry says I have the most comprehensive. Everybody's entitled to a good school in every neighborhood. We can put our young people at community college instead of keeping them in underperforming schools. So this is about thinking bigger than anything else. But how do you pass that in council is a very important conversation, because we now have a leadership change, and if you don't know how to make the sausage, you don't know how to make the sausage.
Thank you. And then Cheryl, we'll finish with you.
How do we make Philadelphians believers again? They are so tired of not seeing their tax dollars at work in their neighborhood. Every time we are working to pass a budget, I will be asking every department, how are we closing the gap between the haves and the have-nots and putting people on a path to self-sufficiency? My grandparents migrated south, met in North Philadelphia, and moved on uptown to Northwest Philadelphia like the Jeffersons. How do we ensure that people like me get access to the opportunity to own a home? How will we make Philadelphia the safest, cleanest, and greenest big city in the nation that provides access to economic opportunity for all? And we do it by proving to people through our actions that we can make that work. I introduced a comprehensive neighborhood safety and community policing plan when it wasn't a popular thing to do. I introduced PHLTCB, so when you see those cleaners with those neon shirts on this commercial corner, that's a Sherelle Parker baby. I'm going to make Philadelphians believe again, because I'm going to get it done, and not through a speech, but through my work.
Thank you. So all fantastic responses from our mayoral candidates about what their budget's going to prioritize and how they're going to get it passed. But the catch is, right, they can't pass it without the support from council. So now we're going to turn it over to our council candidates. We're going to start with you, Erin, and then work our way down in order back to Kendra. What are your top 3 priorities as a council member, and how will you work with the mayor to make sure the budget serves the needs of your constituents? And how will those dollars show up in the community in an equitable manner?
I have 2 minutes. Well, I'll say my priorities. I think safety. I believe in targeting a problem. And so I'll be focused on how we actually fund things like focused deterrence, things that address the most at-risk people in our communities of doing harm or being a victim of harm. Talk about how we get them back on the right path. I also am going to be an unapologetic advocate for substance use disorder treatment and mental illness treatment. My family has lived experience through recovery, and I know how many barriers are in our way to get the help people need the day and at the time they need it. And we've got to start treating the whole family, because everyone who's dealing with these issues have been traumatized and impacted and affected, sometimes generationally. This stuff is in our homes, it's in our schools, it's in our workplaces, and the faster we face this stuff head on, the better off this community will be. That being said, I'm going to hold each and every one of these mayors to task on accountability for quality of life issues. I've spent my career in city management. I know too much about these departments. I'm going to make sure we have goals and activities that get you results. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Great answers from our mayors. When we talk about public safety, If you recall, we had a terrible murder in Temple University. There was a police officer who was killed, right? In one day, they found who was guilty. One day. Is that true for other murders that are happening in the city of Philadelphia? Why not? I will make sure that we hold our mayor accountable, our police department accountable, our DA accountable, our state police accountable. All the agencies, federal, state, and local, work together to find that man who was not from Philadelphia, came from Bucks County, had a good education, all of those things, had no reason to do this, and yet did it and was caught. So I'm just using my time to say the priorities have to be matched with action and actual outcome. So you will see, as your city council member at large, I will bring the outcomes to each neighborhood to tell you, here's what's happening on crime, here's what's happening on job pipeline, here's what's happening on education, and make sure that you know what all of us are doing. Hold ourselves accountable to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So for me, the biggest priority is community safety. And I look at this holistically. The best ways that we have to keep our community safe is by making sure that people have good paying jobs so they can take care of their families. Because when people can't afford to survive, they make desperate decisions, and desperate decisions lead to harm. That also, for me, means making sure that we're intervening in crime as it happens and putting, more crisis units on the streets and investing in focused deterrence, but also making sure that we have stable and affordable housing. One of the ways that in my life that I know that I've seen, that I felt like the least safe is after our family was evicted. And we bounced around from neighborhood to neighborhood. And it didn't matter how safe or unsafe our neighborhood felt, but when I didn't know my neighbors, I felt a lot less safe because we didn't have a community looking out for us. So one of the best ways to also keep us safe, other than making sure that people have good paying jobs, is making sure that people can afford to stay in their neighborhoods. So I think we need to address the eviction crisis and also create more pathways to home ownership.
Great, thank you.
So when I think about my vision is something that we're clearly working on right now. We're creating something called Pathways to Resilient Communities, which took the best of the people that were there before me and come together with a comprehensive plan around the budget and what can we look forward to over the next 4 years. And we're currently working on that, and those things include support for education, a plan around public safety, which includes some of the camera stuff, which includes mental health support, and it includes many of the other things that people talk about, as well as a clear pathway for housing. So we have 5 solid budget asks that are connected to the long-term plan and vision that we're creating. I don't have it available for me today, but it will be presented pretty soon. So I believe that the strongest way for us to support whoever our next mayor is and council is to work together. And I'm a community organizer, and I have been committed to working with everyone, even folks that don't share my same views, because I believe a win for a community is getting everyone to a yes, even if we don't agree.
Great, thank you so much. And we have another candidate joining us today. Hi, do you want to just say your name, what you're running for, and one word to describe your political experience to date?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Helen Gim. I'm Democratic candidate for mayor, and my one word is community and community.
Great, thank you. So we're going back and forth between council and mayoral questions. We're going to go back to a question just for our mayoral candidates, and then the last 2 questions are going to be for everyone on stage. So Maria, we'll start with you. What agencies will your administration work with to address mental health issues? How can those agencies impact the various mental health challenges that our city currently faces? Thinking about an all-hands-on-deck approach.
Thank you. I actually have done a lot of work. Our community behavioral health system, it requires a total redo around how we structure supports for not only our families, but for children. I insisted that Community Behavioral Health Board be transparent. We have CBH, which has a $1.3 billion budget that no one knows how it gets operationalized. And I've done a lot of work in this space. representing communities like Pleasanton in need of drug treatment and other services. And so how I would work with these is one, transparency. People really need to know. And then I would stop this checking off the box as opposed to the connectivity of a continuum of care system. In order for us to do this, we need to hold these agencies accountable and ensure that they have cultural competency, that they are wrapping themselves around families, because many of the times, and this is a very important piece of our Health and Human Services portfolio, we remove more children from families than any part of the world. And I would stop that disruption and ensure that we wrap ourselves around our children and our families. Thank you.
As mayor, I would make sure that the operating departments that report to the mayor are fully focused on the neighborhoods most impacted by gun violence and trauma that is going on right now. What that means for mental health, behavioral health. The city gets $1 billion of federal and state money every year for behavioral health. We also have a public health department that gets over $100 million a year. What we need to do, and what I will do as mayor, is be laser focused every day to say, how are these departments working together to make sure that everyone in the 14 zip codes out of 40 across our city that have the majority of the gun violence, how do we make sure that people get trauma treatment, get therapy when they need it? Because right now what I hear is the wait is way too long and there's not the community connection going on. And also I will make sure that the schools have the trauma treatment and behavioral health workers that they need in every school. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure.
Mental and behavioral health support services should be infused in every department across the city of Philadelphia. As a Black woman who's had a lived experience operating at the intersection of both race along with gender, particularly from a race perspective, no longer is talking about mental and behavioral health a dirty thing to do. We don't sweep it under the rug. But another thing that we've noticed is we have to look at who's providing the services. Black and brown communities are most in need of those behavioral and mental health supports, but they are 9 times out of 10 not the providers. What are we doing to ensure that the social workers, the psychologists, and the therapists make cultural competency part of their metrics when determining who should be providing the service? It is no surprise that people feel connected to, and when you get a chance to see someone who looks like you, who walks like you, who's experienced what you've experienced, that becomes essential. In addition to that, I won't let experts, for example, who look at the opioid crisis in Kensington and tell us that safe injection sites are the tools that we need to address them. We need long-term care, we need long-term treatment, and long-term housing to address those kind of crises, and cultural competency will be a part of that.
Thank you. Helen?
Thank you. I think a lot of this conversation is not only what we want to do, but what we have actually done. This is hard work to get these systems to integrate. I was proud to help launch the Department of Behavioral Health first non-police mobile mental health crisis units. I want crisis response units going out to respond to conditions around mental health, around homelessness, around addiction treatments, and around domestic violence, and allow our police officers to focus on the violent crime that they need to do. That program has only gone on a pilot phase for the last 2 years. As mayor, I'm going to make sure that it goes out and is lifted up and reaches out to communities in crisis and in need. Second, I worked really hard to make sure that we got social workers into our schools. That was a hard program with the school district and with our community behavioral health. We were able to do that in about 2 dozen or 3 dozen schools. Every single school should have a school social worker. Every single school should be supported with counselors and support Every single school should have teen wellness and health programs right now because our young people are not all right, and they will not be all right until we get them the supports and help that they need. It's not just about what we plan to do, but how we're going to actually do the work and get it done. As a council member being able to do this, I was able to do this much. As mayor, I will make sure that we finish the job.
Thank you. So we've got 2 more questions left, 1 minute each to answer, and then we're going to open it up to the audience that's here today to kind of dive a little bit deeper into some of the things you've heard. We're going to do this last question, or the second to last question from Kendra on, and then we'll go the last question from Helen this way. All right, so Kendra, a report recently came out that indicated the current formula for school funding is indeed discriminatory. How will the mayor and city council work to leverage this finding and provide better facilities and academics in low-income communities?
Great question. So currently, based on that report, I'm in the process of organizing our statewide officials, both on the municipal level and the state level, because the funding we need is available in Harrisburg. In order for us to go get it, we have to go collectively. I know Philadelphia is in crisis, but there are other smaller rural areas across the Commonwealth that are also in crisis. And since Philadelphia is seen as the boogeyman in the state, and they don't want to funnel the money down, I said I'm a community organizer first. So it's my job to connect with everyone to make sure Philadelphia children get the money they deserve immediately, because the equitable funding didn't happen by mistake. It was a planned effort by other folks to make that happen. So it's my job, first as a community organizer, and also as an elected official, is how can we get the money right here in the schools for our children? As a Philadelphia public school parent, currently, we need this money now, and I'm in the process right now of doing organizing across the state to ensure that next year, or the next 5 years, we won't have this same conversation about enough funding or playing around funding to support our schools here in Philadelphia.
All right, thank you very much. Maria?
Thank you. It's very important that we understand that this lawsuit, while promising, may take us a few years to get the full funding of it. In the meantime, we have to make sure that the school district and the money is following the child. I am for a student-weighted formula, that the child get the entire amount of allocation money it needs so that that child can get all of its support and all of its resources. If we add money to a back system that is not equitable, we're not going to get better outcomes. So this is an honest conversation about why certain schools get more funding than others, and making sure that there's more equitable funding. Again, a good K-8 school in every neighborhood, high school options that really take kids to college or to a career, and again, getting our young people at community college as soon as possible. Their income capacity, if they get an associate's degree in their lifetime, is more than $400,000 extra dollars. We have the capacity to do this.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking about this. So I'm a graduate of Philly Public Schools, and my mom was a cafeteria worker in our neighborhood school in Frankfurt. And she was one of the 1,200 workers who was going to lose her job as an essential member of school staff when Corbett cut $1 billion from our schools. And that was really devastating for my family. But her union, right here, led a hunger strike and won her job and 1,200 other workers' jobs back. And that's really why I started organizing, because of the education justice movement and the ways that I've seen it impact me as a student and my family with my mom as a worker. So, you know, when I first heard about this ruling, I was like, thank you for affirming what we already know and live and experience every day. You know, we didn't need to be told that our school funding system is inequitable, but it's nice to have confirmation of that from the courts. So, you know, we need to make the most of this moment and push the state to pay up. But we also need to make sure that big profitable nonprofits in Philly that are currently not paying any property taxes pay up, because that money should be going to our schools. Right now, the University of Pennsylvania is the biggest property owner and employer in the city of Philadelphia, and they pay nothing in taxes. And that is stealing from our children.
That's time. Thank you. Rebecca?
As mayor, I will work with the governor and the state legislature to make the court ruling a reality. Our school district needs billions of dollars more than it's getting. We have buildings filled with asbestos and lead. We can't fix all those buildings without the money that is due to us from the state. And as mayor, I will work every day to get that money so that our kids and our teachers are not in unsafe buildings. It's unacceptable. Also, as mayor, I will appoint a school board that shares my vision for improvement and accountability. This is a huge power of the mayor now to appoint the school board. And I'll make sure that we have a school board that shares my vision and that we have improvement, looking at schools that are succeeding despite challenging circumstances and replicating that. And also as mayor, I'll make sure that we have library and rec programming in every neighborhood after school so that our kids have a place to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina.
Leading with love, we need to tell our children we love you by putting you into clean schools with no asbestos or lead poisoning. And I will work with the mayor, whoever that is, to say we need to advocate for a special budget and a capital budget, not the operating budget for the schools and the teachers and the children and the toilet paper and the books, but a special building budget that should be set aside. We have ARPA money, we have infrastructure money, we have money surplus in the state and locally. Make a 25-year-old plan to clean these buildings. Either break them down, give us some new schools so our children know we care about them, or remediate what can be remediated. We want to make sure the state pays more money. They only do 38% of the operating budget of the school. They have more money. We pay with our property taxes. We don't have that many property taxes. That's why our schools are not doing well, but Lower Merion is. So we need to change that proportion of what the state is paying. And we need to go to federal government to say they have a tiny little piece they're paying now, increase it, because investment in our children is critical. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean?
As a proud product of the school district of Philadelphia, led by then Superintendent Dr. Constance E. Clayton, I will be unapologetic about ensuring that for the first time in our city's history, we don't create an us versus them advocacy when it comes to quality public education. It won't be traditional publics versus charters. It will be about Philadelphia creating quality seats with quality instruction in first-class 21st century modern buildings. And so when we go to Harrisburg and to the federal government, we will do so with a united front. But I am the only candidate in this race who has experience delivering for that constituency that we just heard about, who would have lost their jobs when Dr. Height said if we don't get an additional recurring revenue source to fund public education, schools won't open. I was chair of the Philadelphia delegation and had to figure out how to get to yes with people who I agreed to disagree with 99% of the time when I was there, but we found a way to deliver, and those layoffs that you heard mentioned, they did not occur. In addition, we're going to rebuild our schools, but we're going to partner with the building trades, and our kids will learn the skills with the building trades to help to rebuild these buildings along with our housing stock.
Thank you.
I've spent 15 years in public service, and one of the most important values I've always held is fair is not equal. Fair is not equal, and it's never been more true than in our education system. It is not equal because we have not helped lift up our families and our children who are in need of help. It costs more because our kids here suffer more. We have created imaginary lines which dictate what our kids can and cannot have. It's not right, and it shouldn't be allowed. Not in this century, and not with the money our state and our local governments have. I will fight for every single dollar to fund our schools. That being said, I think one of the skill sets I bring to City Council is understanding finance and how we build buildings using real dollars, which is something you should all care about when you elect a city council or mayor. People who understand math are the people who are going to make sure those buildings get built each and every year. You deserve better in this city, and I will help make sure you have better in this city. Thank you.
Thank you. And Helen?
No one in Harrisburg or in Washington, D.C. will fight harder for a vision for the city of Philadelphia and for its school children than Philadelphians themselves. If we do not have a mayor that knows the plan on where to go, no one's going to hand us the money. We have to fight for it, as we have done that every single day. I knew that 30 years ago when I was a teacher in the Philadelphia Public Schools, teaching on the 5th floor of a 100-year-old building in Olney. I knew that when I was a parent organizer and started parents' organizations to stop state takeovers and school closings and schools without school nurses. There were people who were in state legislatures and in mayoral administrations that watched as our schools and nurses and counselors were taken out and 30 schools were closed. That's why I came on to City Council, to lead this city on a clear vision that it's not just about money following kids, but when a school opens up, what should that school have? Darn well better have a nurse and a counselor for every child. It should have after-school programs, pre-K and breakfast, morning, noon, and after school. It should have summer school going year-round, air conditioning, modern buildings, supports and mentorship for young people. That is the vision that this city needs to fight for. As mayor, I've led that vision from outside. We will have a united school district budget with the city of Philadelphia to build the modern schools, and we can bring the University of Pennsylvania, Temple University, and all these universities along, because they already gave $100 million towards school modernization when we showed them the plan. Without the plan, we have to lead, and I'll lead that plan.
That's time. Thank you so much. All right, we've got one last question, 1 minute each, and then we're going to open it up and give everyone a chance in the audience to ask their questions and dive deeper into some of the things. Helen, we're going to start with you and go all the way back down. We're going to stick to 1 minute. So the city recently conducted an audit of the police districts and found biases that exist in the services provided to Black and brown communities. It could also be said that these biases exist in other services provided by the city as well. How will City Council and the mayor work together to ensure equitable services are provided across neighborhoods?
This is the most important issue. We can look at it from 911 response times that are vastly different from neighborhood to neighborhood. You can look at it in terms of outcomes and cleanup of sanitation, how seriously we utilize our L&I departments from downtown versus communities and neighborhoods that see illegal construction, unsafe construction sites or vacant lots. As mayor, my primary focus is on neighborhoods and communities. We are going to prioritize communities and neighborhoods that have been deeply impacted by violence, that have been deeply impacted by the opioid crisis, and make sure that outcomes are even, not just that services go out evenly and that everyone gets once a week trash service. Outcomes have to be even. If downtown is the standard, then let that be the standard for every single neighborhood and community. And if that takes 3 days of trash service, if that takes 4 days, then that's what it will take. That's my commitment on how we're going to do this. I've always governed by equity. I've always governed by outcomes, and I've always been held accountable to communities and people. And in my administration, we're going to make sure that we hear back from communities, and I don't just serve agencies.
Thank you. Erin?
Back in 2007, 2008, there was this culture of who you know government, which is if you didn't know somebody in government, you didn't get the services you wanted. That's why Philly 311 was built. It was built so you could access your government anytime, anyplace, anywhere. And what I ran was a program called Philly Stack. And what we did was something really fascinating. People think they get services. People who are elected to office think you get services. But when you show them on a map where people are actually delivering services, you find out a lot about disparities. And when we map things in city council, when I'm a city council member, I'm going to put it all out there because truth tells a story. You will know who's getting the city's money and resources because I'm going to map it and we're going to talk about it regularly. My first piece of legislation will be a resolution to hold hearings every month or every quarter on quality of life issues. We're going to map it and talk about it, and I'm going to bring solutions for how we get you smarter, faster, better government because that's what you deserve.
Thank you.
I'm feeling like James Baldwin this morning. When he was given an interview about civil rights and a person said, James, mainstream America cares about civil rights too, he said, I can't believe what you say because I see what you do. Can't believe. In the 9th Councilmatic District that I was responsible for representing, we made neighborhood stabilization an essential part of how we govern. We will do the same as mayor of this city, but we're going to put it on steroids. From home ownership to cleanliness in neighborhoods. I stole the idea from Center City when I saw they made it somebody's job to keep those streets clean. Why can't we have that in every neighborhood? And I did it already. When it comes to cameras and commercial quarters being stable, I want to plant trees, I want cameras, I want lights, and I want them to be safe. And the only people I want renting housing in the city of Philadelphia are those people who choose not to rent because they don't want to shovel snow or pick up leaves. But I want everyone to have the opportunity to build generational wealth, and that's dignity and ownership. And delivering of services, efficiency, and measuring outcomes. Don't listen to what people say, check out what they've done.
Thank you.
So I'm trained as a scientist, and my job is to be evidence-based. What was said just now, accountability, outcomes, measure them, and then, as a city council member at large, I will be able to hold up that budget if we don't see that accountability translating into outcomes for services. So we have some tools, we have to have them bold and exercise them. But I also started the Office of Public Engagement, which was the whole point of talking to you, making sure you who are at closest to the pain must be at the table making policy. When you put that two together, you're going to get services, because you'll be at the table for policy, and I'll be at the table to make sure there's accountability and you hear what's going on. And then hold up the budget to say, hey, we're not doing what we said we're going to do, so we're going to scrutinize this much more to see where things are going. So I will ask you to be partners with me when I'm your city council member at large across this city of 1.6 million people, so you know what's going on in your city and making sure there's equity.
Thank you. Rebecca?
So as city controller, my office conducted the audit of the police department. And I felt it was important to do that audit as city controller because the city spends $800 million of your tax money on policing every year. Yet people don't feel safe. One of the findings of that audit was that there were real disparities by neighborhood on how fast police responded. And we found that the only correlating factor to response time by neighborhood was race. With the whiter the neighborhood, the faster the police response time. We need to fix this. This goes to decades and decades of racist government policy from the country and our city. As mayor, I will fix that to make service delivery truly equal. My office as city controller found that trash collection was only 65 to 75% on time in North, West, and South Philly. I will fix this as mayor.
We're out of time. Thank you.
So the thing we need to remember about public services is it's not just a question of keeping our communities clean and beautiful, which matters, right? It's important. It's also a question of jobs. There's thousands of vacancies across our city government right now that are good paying jobs that we need to work immediately to fill. That is a poverty initiative, that's a keeping our neighborhoods clean and safe initiative, and it also prevents violence because again, when people are not able to take care of our families, we are forced into difficult decisions. So for me, we need to see this holistically and tie these together. Our communities deserve to have clear, safe, responsive public services, and we need to tie that with good paying jobs as well. Like Councilmember Parker mentioned, people get paid all the time in Center City to pick up trash to keep our streets clean. We need to expand that to the entire city.
Great. We have one more candidate joining us. We'll have you go answer the question last, and I'll repeat it before it's your turn. Maria?
Thank you. Again, this is the most important part of how you decide who the next mayor is. This is not a philosophical exercise. When folks tell you we don't get these kinds of responses and they're not equitable, we live it every single day. There is no equity because there is no one in leadership that understands where the rubber meets the road. We know why police don't respond in our neighborhoods. You know why? Because we don't have enough police officers in that neighborhood. But those other white neighborhoods have more people doing less work, right? This is is not a evidence-based numbers thing. This is what we live every single day. The next mayor has to have a race and equity conversation that you cannot do from a space of privilege. You have to do on understanding when you make decisions how they really impact people's lives. And that's why I think I am the best mayor at this particular time.
Thank you.
Well, I believe that we can get more together. And when I think of with the question, I thought about this pathway to resilient communities that I keep mentioning that I want to talk about. Like, how can we get the best of the best for everyone in Philadelphia? And then when I talk about the different plans that have come together to create that, a lot of these plans were created by people up here on the panel that were leadership in council and also the former controller. So when I think of what is possible is getting the best out of what has already been done. Look at the current reports that are out. There's a 57-block initiative that was put out there. There are 57 blocks in the city that are most impacted by crime. Those same 57 blocks are also overridden with blight and need cleaning from sanitation. So those are also included in this Pathways to Resilient Communities. And for me, creating this platform is more than just something that City Council can look at and have a vision for the next 4 years, but it's also something we can come together collectively and hold our mayor accountable for, because people need something they can see, something they can feel, and something that's result-driven. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We have one new candidate joining us. If you could, I'm going to repeat this is our last question before we open it up to the audience, but we're going to get you in. Before I read the question, when you answer, if you could also state your name and the position that you're running for. So the question was, the city recently conducted an audit of the police districts and found biases that exist in the services provided to Black and brown communities. It could be said that these biases also exist in other services provided by the city as well. How will City Council and the mayor work together to ensure equitable services are provided across neighborhoods? You have 1 minute.
Thank you, Jen. Hi, my name is Melissa Robbins, everyone. I'm running for City Council at large. How can we ensure that services are equitable citywide? Well, there's no question. America is built on racism. There's no question. There's never in the history of America have we seen an investment into Black and brown communities. How can we work together collectively? First of all, we have to acknowledge the fact that Black people are historically underserved. One, we can look at the budget and we can determine how our funds are allocated. Then we can take a look and ask ourselves collectively, where is the hemorrhaging in our city, right? With a crisis right now. How can we direct funds to an area where we know we can immediately decrease crime? Who's causing the crime? Our young people. How are our young people getting guns? Why are they running around shooting each other instead of doing things that young people should be doing? Where are our after-school programs? Where are our summer programs? Why is it that every summer we need lifeguards? Why do we not have a year-round program training people? Where are our technical schools, our vocational technical schools? Our children are underserved historically. The bleeding is with our children. Our children are causing the most amount of crime. We saw flash mobs go to gun-toting kids.
That's time.
Why?
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, well, thank you all so much for answering these questions that were curated by this wonderful church community in advance. And now we're going to open it up to dive in a little deeper from some of the stuff that we heard. If anyone has a question, we invite you now to come up to the podium and ask. We do want to keep everything as brief as possible so we can get as many people as talking.
I'm born and raised in Philadelphia, 89 years old. I never heard so many promises in my life. But you know what? I love all of them. Everybody knows Rebecca Kennedy. I'm listening to it. Everybody needs to vote in Philadelphia because we need this team. We need this team. Taxes. We, the poor people, and it's been said on the radio about once a day over the city of Philadelphia. that the black people's taxes are up here, the white people down here. And what they're trying to do is get our houses so they can do with them what they want in the neighborhood. They expecting more. I don't know why. Because we bought all the houses. The last 30, 40 years, we're the only ones been buying houses and people have been moving out to the burbs. Why do they want to come back? Because we did all those wonderful things downtown and they want to be involved. And they want it. And we're paying the penalties. So I'm telling you, if you get in, you're going to have to do these things. I ain't going to be here playing around about I wanted to, but I couldn't. I couldn't vote this way because so-and-so said, we gonna say, we got how many people? 90% of our people registered to vote in the city of Philadelphia. You know who one of them people? They get on people's nerves and they nail them down. Everybody's got to vote. Don't let anybody tell you that you're mad and not vote is going to help you, because it's not. Because then otherwise you're going to use your Medicare, you're going to use your Social Security, and then you're going to lose the house you live in.
Thank you.
Everybody must vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. All right, we've got another question over here. And as you ask your questions, we'll give candidates no more than a minute. We'll try to keep it as tight as we can, but we appreciate everyone's timeliness. Please go ahead.
So we know that the police department is at a critical level. There's a problem retaining and hiring qualified people. How will you address that and attract quality police officers and ensure that they execute quality policing?
We'll start with Melissa and then work our way down. Yeah.
Excellent question, sir. So we have so many young and black and brown kids who want to be law enforcement officers, but we have to look at the testing. We have to look at what has historically kept our young black and brown people out of policing. They're the ones experiencing the trauma. So one, look at the testing too. Who are the people that are the trainers? How long have they been there? If you've been training the police department for 15 to 20 years, that means you're a part of the problem. We need to get new, fresh blood. Make sure that we have in our schools officers coming in to build up a whole a base of students who can actually, like ROTC in the Army, create a young group so our children can transition into law enforcement. We have to remove barriers so that we can allow our children to go into the neighborhoods that they grew up in, that they know, that people recognize them, so that they can feel comfortable being in those neighborhoods. And another thing, we have to hold white supremacy accountable in our city. We know what our police do. We cannot lie about the harm that they cause.
Thank you.
So, two things. One, I agree absolutely that we should be reducing barriers to employment. One of them includes absolutely the testing to be able to make it clear that we are engaging with people. Two, we need to, I introduced a law to repeal a practice that City Council had done that prohibited anybody who didn't live in Philadelphia from being able to apply for a police officer's position. People have to live here in the city of Philadelphia, but I want to make sure that we can reach out, because that eliminated almost 30 to 40% of applicants. Third, though, we need to be on the ground. We need to be demonstrating what community policing looks like. That means that our officers are in collaboration with many other agencies and individuals. This is not just something where all of the public safety is relying upon police officers. So that means when we're doing, for example, safe routes to schools, I want a coordinated approach with SEPTA, the school district, our police department, and civic town watches to make sure that no parent has to be worried when their child goes to and from schools, because so many of the shootings of young people are happening before 6 p.m.
Thank you.
I agree with both addressing the pipelines. I think we've got to show children who are coming up, starting at a very young age, that these are good careers and these are trustworthy humans. And we teach them that by making sure we support community police work, walking that beat, getting to know the kids on the street, being there after school, asking what they're up to, where they're going, how's their day. Creating relationships in the community is so important to people feeling like that's a job I want. When there's nothing but negative interactions with young people, they're not going to want that job. That doesn't look like a good space to be. These are solid jobs with good pensions and good benefits. But what we need are people on the street making it look and feel like something you want to do. We've got to show our kids better police, and we do that by getting back to walking a beat and building relationships in the community.
Thank you. Yeah.
Holy Cross, authenticity has to be important, and I can't do it anymore. The message that I'm delivering you today doesn't change whether I'm in the Northeast, I'm in a river, whether it's a far left or conservative or somebody in the middle. The question was about policing. We have to be unapologetic about incentivizing residency and not get bogged down into legislative bureaucracy. We want Philadelphians to become members of our police department, so we want to train our kids, just like you heard me talk about the building trades, being in the school district for police and for fire. They need to be ingrained. Every civil service position in the city of Philadelphia, we need to be training here. Removing the barriers is essential. Did you know that reviewing your credit score was an eligibility requirement? Now you want to talk about discouraging people from applying, but we addressed that during my tenure in council. Don't listen to what people say. Check out what they've done. Incentivize community policing.
Thank you. Nina?
Same thoughts about community policing, but what does that look like when we have police already in? I think there was an audit done about police not showing up to work. There was a huge amount of police taking sick leave when they weren't sick. So not only do we have a vacancy in our police, the police who are here are not doing their job. So we need to, our tax dollars are paying for that. So we need to have accountability with our current police force, encourage more people to apply for these jobs, remove the barriers. Civil service exams are a legacy exam. People tell a family member what to expect in that exam. So as a result, somebody coming from the outside who has no legacy in the department doesn't know how to sit for that exam. So we have to, if you're talking about equity, that's what we have to look at, is what are the barriers holding people back? And civil service exam is one of them, making sure that it's a comfortable place. We need mental health care for our police officers. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca?
So my office's audit of the police department laid out numerous recommendations that should be implemented. As controller, that's where my power ended. I couldn't force the mayor to make change. As mayor, I can and will make the changes happen. So I'll address two of those recommendations. The first is redoing the entire $800 million police spend so that it gives each neighborhood true policing in the way that that neighborhood wants it. What that will do is it will increase people that want to be police officers, because you will have police that walk the street, build relationships, and you will get policing in a way that each neighborhood wants it. Also, the audit found that out of a little under 6,000 officers in our force, only 2,500 are on patrol right now. The vast majority are in specialized units or in desk work. We need to bring them back out onto patrol.
Thank you. Amanda?
So right now, the system of policing is not working for neighborhoods, it's not working for Black Philadelphians, it's not working for immigrants, it's not working for poor white folks either. And it's also not working for police. Right now, we're asking police to respond to mental health crises, domestic violence situations, and to solve violent crime, and to prevent crime. We're asking, if you're asked to do 20 things at your job, you're gonna do many of them not well, right? So we need to ask the question of what role are we asking for police to show up in our communities and solve, and then create more specialized training so that they have the support they need to actually support our communities and not traumatize folks. That needs to be a partnership with community organizations, with churches, with community leaders, and not just elected community leaders, but people who take on leadership in the neighborhoods. When we do that, we'll start to heal some of the distrust with police and residents. And when we heal that distrust, more people will be willing to join the police force.
That's time. Thank you. Maria?
Again, please look at people's website and please look at what they've done when they've been at the table. I'm the only person calling for a CFO and a human resource professional at the police department. I served on the police oversight board. We need to support, equip, train, and recruit folks who want to work in our neighborhoods, right? That is the key to this. And then we're going to have to pay them. When you look at the salary of police officers in the city of Philadelphia, just across from Ben Salem, after 5 years, we're half the pay. So we have to professionalize the department and make sure that folks who are trained to be police officers and community policing and others are actually working in the street. We have hundreds of jobs in the police department that are being done by police officers that could be done by civilians. We urgently need everyone trained out, deployed in our communities. And I will bring in a human resource professional to help us do that.
Thank you. And Kendra.
So I want to go back to some of the points that some of my colleagues made, but I'm not going to repeat all of them. What I do believe is that we need to incentivize policing for young people. And I'm going to go back to something real and community-based. On Martin Luther King Day, I was at a elementary school doing a service project, and I met with some of the young cadets. So these are the young men that recruit young people. They said they started in high school. Now, as an impacted person from North Philly that live on a block, that is a police car parked every 4 blocks, I realized that that does not incentivize the young men from my community to want to become a police officer. What we need is how can we connect with young people to let them know they can be a part of the change that they want to see. And it doesn't start in high school. So when we talk about walking the beat and people in community means making sure police officers not only just understand the community that they're in, but are able to reach back and connect to young people that are most impacted, not just by the crime, but also impact by experiences with poor experiences with policing. Thank you.
All right, thank you all so much. We have time for one more question. If there's someone from the audience that has a mic. There's a microphone right over there, your way. And for this question, for just my own convenience, we're going to go down this way. So thank you everyone for participating.
Good morning. We heard your plan about polices. We heard your plan about our children, our schools. We heard your plan about other things. But what plan do you have for our homeless that's living on the streets?
It's a great question. So again, 1 minute each, and we'll start with Kendra.
For homelessness is huge.
Yeah.
So when I entered council, the first thing, we had this encampment happening, and we really pushed the city to make sure they were able to provide housing, long-term housing for folks that are experiencing homelessness. We have to continue to do this, but it can't be a siloed services. A lot of people that are experiencing homelessness are experiencing homelessness for multiple reasons, poverty being one, mental health being another, addictions being another. We have to get all of these services together, working in concert, in order for us to really come up with a long-term solution for homelessness. And to invest, not just in those services, but invest in home ownership for some poor people, pathways out of poverty, and workforce development. That's how we're going to alleviate this homelessness situation that we have in the city. But we have to get all the agencies working together.
Thank you.
This is about leadership. Our homeless budget is $130 million. Our homeless office says there's 5,000 homeless people. That's $20-something thousand per homeless person, right? So this is about having a plan. What is the plan? We're going to have to create opportunities for people with, as Councilmember Brooks said, that have addiction issues, other issues. We got to get these folks enrolled in long-term disability plans. We got to create rooming housing situations. We're going to have to create group homes, and they have to be all over the city. We cannot concentrate poverty in certain neighborhoods. That's why we have the problems that we have. People who are going to be permanently disabled for whatever the situation is, have limited income, deserve a quality of life. We can only do that if we invest in those housing models that are going to protect them, because no one's going to recover from addiction or mental health if they don't have stable housing. But we resist multiple housing opportunities. I asked you to go on our website. I've done more affordable housing in my councilmatic districts than most of the districts combined, but with models that work for everyone.
Thank you. Amanda?
So the first thing we need to do is address the crisis of housing affordability. Philadelphia is becoming a renter city, and 50% of renters pay 50% or more of their income on rent. Most of us are just one missed paycheck away from becoming houseless. So we need to make sure that we're preventing people from becoming homeless to begin with, right? And when it comes for people who are already struggling with homelessness, we need to recognize that people have a diversity of experience of being homeless. Many homeless folks are holding down a job and still can't afford a place to live. Many homeless folks are couch surfing. A lot of people do not feel safe going to our shelters because the conditions are not safe. There's bed bugs, they force people to be separated from their pets and their belongings and their family. We need to change that entire system, but also our priority needs to be first getting people into stable housing. And when we do that, we can also simultaneously address mental health crises, addiction issues, so I'll just stop there.
Thank you. Rebecca?
This is a serious issue. The homeless individuals that live on the streets. First, as mayor, I would have teams of city workers, behavioral health, social work, going to talk to the individuals on the street. And we also need to make sure that there's more supportive housing so that there's a place for them to go that is not just the emergency room and back to the street. We need to create a place where they can live and also have support services right there. And then on the issue of affordable housing, I put out a plan that called for the city to do 3 things, and this is what I'll do as mayor. First, the city owns 8,500 vacant properties and lots. As mayor, I would create a citywide affordable housing plan with what the city owns. And as mayor, I will make sure that longtime homeowners stay in their homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina.
So as mentioned, we have about 5,000 people who are unhoused. We can easily look at that population and see who are unhoused because they had a crisis in their life and they fell out and are now being unhoused. Look at who have mental health issues, who have addiction issues. Divide up the population so the services you give are tailored to who needs them. Services are not the same for someone who lived in a house and had a medical emergency and now landed up on the street. They need much less issues, social service support. They just need a house. The people who are unhoused for a long time, they're very, very afraid to go into housing. So they need social services wrapped up to make sure they continue and sustain themselves in this housing. So that budget that you're spending on our homeless community has to be tailored to who the homeless is and making sure they're getting the services. And also the other thing is how to treat people when they go to get their services. Terribly in our offices.
That's time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheryl?
Because people become homeless for a number of reasons, we must have a comprehensive, integrated approach that is not one size fits all for every person and or neighborhood. The most affordable house that you can have is the one that you currently live in. So instead of just placing all of our focus on building new, how about preservation of existing beautiful buildings, homes, brick and stone, but falling apart because we don't have the disposable income to maintain them. I've made that a priority and I'm unapologetic about advocating for preserving existing, but not just city-owned property. Think about schools that have been sold. Why aren't we thinking in an innovative way about repurposing those buildings to provide large-scale transitional housing that we can have until we can find permanent housing for those people? And finally, no more I know what's best for you people policy making. How about allowing those people who've been homeless to be a part of the decision making and the policies?
Time. Thank you. Erin?
Thank you. There's different variations of homelessness. I'll focus on the folks who are living on the streets. I've been talking about substance use disorder and mental illness for 5 years. I ran in 2019. This was my #1 issue. In council, I plan to put together a task force, and they are tasked with putting together an action plan both on education and facility building. This is not an issue that Philadelphia caused on its own, and it's not an issue we will cure on our own. We need state and federal resources I have talked about how we transition Hahnemann Hospital into a facility that we can use for patients. We do not have enough places for these folks to go. They need a lot of care, a lot of wraparound services. We have building stocks that's ready to go for patient care. We should be thinking about how we use that in a real way to get the services people need. I will be, like I said before, unapologetically advocating for families who are going through this chaotic system of mental health and substance use.
Thank you. Helen?
When I came onto council, about 1 out of 14 renters was being evicted. This was common practice that was impacting so many different families. In less than 5 years, I helped build out the most successful eviction program in the country that slashed evictions by almost 60 to 70%. And it proved one thing: when government actually does its work, dramatic change can happen. I will bring that same initiative to how we talk about homelessness. First and foremost, you gotta pay attention to the most vulnerable in our community. That includes youth exiting out of foster care. That includes returning citizens who are coming back into our communities. That especially includes disabled members of our Philadelphia family, and we need targeted services that support them. We talked about integrated housing. It's no longer just paying for a roof over somebody's head or just expecting that because you have housing, everything else gets fixed. These are integrated services with lots of supports. It's housing complexes that provide counselors and support personnel. That's my commitment and a citywide plan to make it happen.
All right, and Melissa.
So, I should tell you this. While being a veteran of the United States Army, while being a student at Temple University, and a mother of 4 children, I was homeless. I didn't have mental illness, and I wasn't sitting on the street. I was in my car, studying, preparing for my classes. So yes, Councilmember Parker, we do need people who were homeless to be a part of the solution. What would I have wanted? I went to City Council. I asked for help. We have all of these vacant houses in the city of Philadelphia. You could have given me 1 room. You could have given me 1 room with my children and I would have been okay. But I slept in my car and I saved every nickel and I pulled it together and got an apartment. We need to make sure we address mental illness, yes, addiction, but how about those people who just can't afford a place to rest their head? Now I'm going to tell you, invest your money into educating people so that they can get sustainable jobs and they can afford a home and stay in a home like Councilmember Parker said. Thank you all, and I'm sorry that I was late. I was in South Philly.
Let's give a big round of applause. We're not done yet, but let's give a round of applause for all of our candidates for that. Thank you all so much. We have all of your contact information, which we would like to share out with the congregation. And then before we go, just as a reminder, because we heard from so many wonderful voices today, if you could just, before you go, just say your name and the office that you're running for again. No more surprise questions. And we'll start with Kendra and go all the way down. Just your name and what you're running for.
My name is Kendra, and I'm running for Kendra Brooks, and I'm running for City Council at large.
Maria Jimenez Sanchez, running for mayor. Thank you.
Amanda McNamara, running for City Council at large.
Rebecca Reinhardt, running for mayor.
Nina Ahmed, running for City Council at large. We will go for March 2. I will answer.
Sherelle Parker, candidate for the 100th mayor of the city of Philadelphia. We've never had someone who looks like me.
Erin Sandmore, City Council at large. Thanks for being here, everybody.
Helen Gibb, Democratic candidate for mayor of Philadelphia.
Melissa Robbins, running to be your public servant as a City Council member at large.
Thank you all so much. Thank you for allowing me, Jen Devor, and Better Civics to be part of this day. Please check out our website, bettercivics.org, for more information. I'm going to bring up Shalimar. Thank you. I'm going to bring up Shalimar to wrap us up and take it home. So thank you all. Don't forget to vote.
Thank you everyone. Thank you to our moderators. We only have a call to action. We have a call to action to our community members. Do your homework. Don't just vote, be an educated voter. Here are 5 habits of an informed voter, courtesy of the Committee of 7. Number 1, be a voter, right? Register to vote, check your registration status, and confirm your polling place. 2, invite diverse perspectives. Try to listen to all candidates openly without bias. 3, choose your news wisely. There's a lot of fake news out there. If you are going online to find information, use reputable sources, especially websites ending with .org, .gov, and .edu. And remember, social media should not be your only source of news. Number 4, learn how elections and government work. It's important to know what your elected officials have the authority to do. Continue to do your research and educate yourself on the process. And last but not least, act. Now that you are an informed voter, vote. The primary election is taking place on May 16th, and the Philadelphia City Commissioners have an easy-to-use site so you can see a sample ballot ahead of the election and prepare to make an informed decision. Before we close out with prayer, let's thank everyone for coming. We hope you've been informed, and good luck to all of our candidates. And let's give both our moderator and our candidates a round of applause. Can we have Kelly come up, Miss Kelly Evans, come up and close us out in prayer.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Let us bow our heads. Father God, first give glory and honor to you, praising you because you are God always. I thank you for an opportunity to allow us to edify ourselves, grow us, and lead us, guide us, and direct us. We pray for each and every candidate that is up here with us right now, Father God, that you continue to cover, guide, and lead your steps, Father God, as only you can. We ask that you continue to cover each and every person here and each and every person that's online. We ask right now, Father God, that you continue to do your work, your will, your way, in each of them. We ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.